Welcome to another Daily Shower. I'm meteorologist Matt Bakens. A lot of focus on this one. We still have the flooding due to Ian across the southeast, but as far as hazards coming our way, this is what we're going to be talking about today. The first frost and freeze is coming to a huge swath of the country. It's the coldest temperatures we've had in 5-6 months in a lot of cases. Then we're going to be talking about the bullseye of moisture that continues over New Mexico and also Alaska. How much snow is going to be falling in Alaska? In some cases, more than 3 feet of snow over the next several days. That's a lot. And then I'll finally break it down to Colorado. A lot of subscribers here are from Colorado, so a full forecast into the weekend for Colorado itself is going to be the last thing we'll touch on in this video. And a quick housekeeping note, I really appreciate the weather community we're building here on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. That lets me know you're watching, lets me know you're engaged in the content. And speaking of content, if I ever leave something out that you feel is important or you want a little bit more focus on another area, please let me know. Drop that down in the comments section. I want that feedback. And again, subscribe, like, or add to it with a comment. Much appreciated. All right, coldest weather we've had in 4, 5 to 6 months in a lot of cases. Just generally speaking, throughout the next 4 to 5 days, all the areas colorized here on this map indicate areas that have frost or a freeze on the way. Let's break down the next few days across the country. Here are the low temperatures Friday morning. Very cold in the Dakotas, well into the mid-20s. Hard freeze on the way there. Otherwise, we have 30s from Cheyenne into Des Moines, Milwaukee into Detroit. As far as high temperatures on Friday, mostly looking at 50s and 40s in those colder areas. Still some 90s down by Phoenix, 90s down around San Antonio and Dallas. Let's get into Saturday morning. Gets colder this time around Milwaukee down to St. Louis. Nashville much colder, even Cincinnati at 35 degrees. Around Denver, Cheyenne, we're in the 30s. Still warm across the south, and we stay warm across the south for Saturday afternoon. 90s out by California, but we have a swath of 50s and 60s. Much cooler conditions there across much of the country as this colder air starts to snake on through the country. As far as Sunday morning, we have back to the 40s or so for the Dakotas, so a quick rebound there, and a lot of the frosty or frozen temperatures have moved off to the east, with Sunday afternoon also showing a rebound of 60s and 70s pretty much countrywide, with the exception of the south, which makes it into the 80s and 90s, as well as 80s and 90s off to the west and the southwest. So that's a roundup of temperatures the coming days. Bottom line here is very cold air is moving in relative to where we have been the last 4 to 5 months. First freeze is on the way for a lot of folks. Let's chat about precip now. Much of the country through the weekend, through Monday in fact, not a ton of precip is on the way. Some swaths here in Nebraska and the Dakotas, into the northern Rockies, but really the bullseye is going to be New Mexico. Been favored with precip for a while, and that continues. Santa Fe southward, we're still looking at another 1 to 2 inches of rainfall here. The really impressive, very impactful weather is going to be in Alaska and British Columbia. Here's a look at the precip through the weekend, and this is the coastline of Alaska, the Panhandle, and then down into British Columbia. These colors you see here along the coastline represent 4, 5, 6, 7 inches of total rainfall. Total precip, I should say. Total precip there in Alaska. In British Columbia, I have inches there on the graphic, but you're looking at 75 to 100 millimeters through the late weekend into early next week. In terms of snowpack, because with that precipitation, snow levels about 1,000 feet or so in Alaska and above, the snowpack by Monday is really going to be quite deep. These yellow colors that we have on the map there, that snow depth is going to be climbing well into the 2 to 3 foot range. So a lot of snowfall is headed there. All right, and let's focus on Colorado now. A lot of subscribers from the Denver area and across Colorado, so let's get to it. As we get into Friday, it's going to be much colder. For Denver, it's the coldest weather since mid-May that'll be moving in. As far as worried about a frost or a freeze, anything on this map is pretty much a freeze, very close to it. And we're looking at the San Luis Valley, which will have one of their first freezes of the year, potentially across the northeastern plains. But most metro areas with the exception of maybe on the west side of Denver, west side of the Springs, west side of Pueblo. Those exceptions, we're not likely to have a frost or freeze this time. It's mostly confined to the mountains. Look at temperatures now. Daily low for Friday. We're going to start off Friday morning in the low to mid 40s for the metro areas, 20s, 30s in the high country. As you look at Friday afternoon, much cooler day on tap. Mostly 50s metro locations. A little bit warmer in the Springs and Pueblo with 60s, but for Castle Rock all the way up through the north into Fort Collins and Wellington, mid 50s. In the high country, 50s and 60s, 70s for the western slope. Looking at low temperatures for Saturday morning now. 20s now, with a hard freeze there around Walden, but 20s and 30s in the high country, low 40s, upper 30s for metro locations and plains. Let's get into Saturday afternoon. Not quite as cool as Friday. We have 60s and 70s there in the high country, 60s over the plains, right around 65 or so, ballpark average for the Denver metro location. As far as Sunday morning now, we're rebounding here. Not quite as cold in the metro areas or the eastern plains. We're still within a couple of degrees of where we were Saturday morning, though. In the high country, Walton down to 21. That'll be a cold spot. But obviously seeing temperatures kind of bottom out for the metro area right around 40 or so for Saturday and Sunday morning. And then by Sunday afternoon, we've rebounded back to around 70 or so for a lot of the metro locations and plains, and in the high country, a day of 50s and 60s. You might be asking, is there going to be some precip coming through with this system? There will be, but mostly southern Colorado, closer to New Mexico. So mostly here, Silverton, Durango, Pagosa Springs, down the mountains just outside of Walsenburg and close to Trinidad, may come away with ballpark average upwards of an inch on some of the higher areas there. As far as snowfall, limited snowfall still on the peaks. So as far as a travel impact coming in this weekend, as we cool off, as we get some of these showers, not much of a travel impact in terms of snowfall. There will be areas of snow, but confined to the high country and perhaps the eastern plains, northeastern plains. Under the perfect setup, you might catch a couple of snowflakes, but not much in that snow department this time. So there you have it. That's today's Daily Shower. We'll see you the next time. I'm meteorologist Matt Makins.